Hello, welcome to David Eames on Your Mind, a conversation between friends about mental health issues. Hello, and welcome to the David Eames on Your Mind podcast. As always, I'm joined by the lovely Owen Oxley and Mikey Markham, who is restored to loveliness. Now he's recovered from his punch in the face.
There you go.
So,
And sense.
today I want to talk about attachment styles. Okay, so sounds a bit complicated. So a little bit of an intro first. Attachment styles broadly explains how it is that we relate to other people who are important to us, and there are three broad types. So there's a secure attachment style where we can be happy in our relationships with other people, and we don't really need them to prove it. Then there's an anxious attachment style where we constantly need reassurance from the other person. Then there's what's known as an avoidant attachment style, whereas we tend to keep people at arm's length because we're probably convinced that they're going to let us down at some point, and that relationships feel really risky, don't let people in. There is actually a fourth one, which is known as the chaotic attachment style, which kind of oscillates between the anxious needing reassurance and the avoidant of pushing people away again. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does.
What's your attachment style, Owen?
I think it all depends. I mean, I can't remember exactly the names you gave them all, but I know that I use them all in my day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. And obviously, I mean, with me having a relationship for the amount of time I have with Stace, we're quite real with each other and normal, and she understands that I swear a lot and I can be quite grumpy, and there's not really any apologies to be made, if that makes sense. So, when it comes to other people where you're making new relationships and things, it's that anxious style that I seem to not struggle with.
So do you feel you need a bit of reassurance from people?
Sometimes, and I think being a creative, and especially a creative on my own, it's difficult because you get in your own head, because you make something. It's like when you're a kid building Lego and you do something and you get to a certain point, you're like, this is the best thing ever, and then you show someone and they're like, what's that? And you think, oh, it's obvious. Whereas as an adult creating things for brands and designs and logos and artworks, there's a lot of times when you'll put so much time and effort in that you'll then show the person and they're not as excited as you are. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's partly my own fault because I didn't get enough information from them before I started the project. So I did the age-old thing of assuming. And then once I've done that and then I've presented it to them and they don't like it, you think,
Well, maybe they lack the taste to appreciate your genius.
this is another problem because you can convince yourself of that, and then unfortunately then that's where the arrogance comes in and they become the problem, when ultimately as a paying customer they're the ones that are right at the offset. But it's something that I've put in place, is something called the can you just rule. So I've given people like 2 options for can you justs, because it gets to the point where they start saying, oh yeah, can you just make it better, and can you just make it bigger, and can you? And I say to them, look, if you can ask me this question without using the word just, I'll do it for you all day.
But the thing is, with customers, it's a different thing, because it's a false relationship in a way, because you have different intentions. I'm talking more about family and friends here. So, Mikey, are you secure, anxious, or avoidant in the way you attach to other people?
It's definitely changed through time. One of the instances you gave there, I remember my first relationship. I've got the girl's name on my chest. I was only 15.
Nice.
She had Mikey on her hip and I had Lee on my chest, but Leigh. And we did a lot of that pushing and pulling. It was all about the breakup, because then we could get back together and sort of, oh, I really do love you, and it's that reassurance again, and always testing one another, like, how committed are you to this? How much do you really want to be with me? So then if I could push you away really, really far, I got to see, oh, look, she's crying, which sounds really horrible, actually. It gave me a bad gut feeling then, but if I could get to cry in that way, then
You knew she cared.
I felt she cared, and it was a beautiful feeling. That's really horrible, and it's very warped, and I do wonder where that stemmed from. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But I did see the toxicity of that at the time. And now, yeah, me and Chrissy have a really beautiful, open and honest relationship where we'll have great conversations and talk to one another when we're feeling that prickliness or anything friction wise. And I love the communication that we can have together. But that was very unconscious in the past. I remember it really vividly though, when you were saying that.
Yeah, because attachment styles, they run very deep. I mean, there's a good argument for saying that they're largely formed in the first couple of years of life.
I get it now. I know why.
Yeah.
You can often tell. I mean, that by interviewing parents, you can tell what a child's attachment style is going to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
I mean, I think we ought to have a different category, which is British attachment style.
Yeah.
Because we do tend to be a little bit avoidant compared to some other cultures. You know, keep people at arm's length, struggle to show love and emotion. And those first couple of years of life, if a child doesn't feel hugged enough, then often they can struggle with attachments later in life.
Has that changed more in time, though? I mean, I wasn't of this time, but the way that my grandparents talk of, community was a lot stronger back then.
Yeah, but people weren't necessarily treating the children that closely. It's interesting that these things tend to roll down generations.
Sure.
But I've seen things with younger parents now actually behaving differently, consciously behaving differently to how they were treated in their own childhood.
Yeah.
Because there's more awareness, I think, of the effects that parenting have. Whereas you see this thing from generation to generation, people would be always struggling with attachment issues.
Generational trauma.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing about, beating children is the best way to discipline them. That has changed now, thankfully.
Yeah.
But suddenly the whole view of how parenting works over the last 30 years has changed radically.
Yeah, and I think it's gone to the opposite end massively. Because, like you say, that I didn't get beaten, but I had my arse smacked a couple of times. But it was always justified, in my opinion, for what I was doing at the time. And I know a friend of ours recently. She had the most horrific childhood. It was awful, and all of it was awful. And she's since had 2 or 3 kids. And she's done the thing where she's tried to give them everything she never had. And then essentially she's built them up to this monster that now they literally get in and they say, if there's not a present on my bed when I get in from school, I'm not going tomorrow. And instead of her sort of snapping them back into place and I'm not saying hit them, but actually parenting them, she's then scared and she's going along and doing what they're saying, and she's almost being held hostage from her own kindness. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's difficult to see because I'm really quite straight with my kids. And I'll be dead honest with them. I'll be open with them because I've seen that the neighbours that we had that were really religious, that were never allowed TV, never allowed to play with guns, never allowed to play army in the playground and stuff, then lost their mind at 15 when they found this freedom. And then I know what it was like for me when our neighbours the other side were allowed to stay up till 10 o'clock and we had to go to bed at 8. You miss out on so much. So we're trying with ours to try and just work it as quite a fluid thing, but being open with them with everything. We'll answer any question honestly, but at the same time they pull their weight and they don't take the piss. Whereas it's such a hard thing to try and explain what's right and what's wrong, or the way you should do it. But it's the whole holding people off is, I think, like you say, it's made so early on. But then it's that gut feeling that you will always have.
Yeah, you see, I think it's because the idea gets implanted in the child that if mum doesn't love me, then no one could love me.
Yeah.
And therefore, if somebody's showing some love towards me, that's suspicious. That
Too good to be true.
They're after something.
Yeah.
That one person that's supposed to give you all that love and support and connection.
And I'm not saying this to load guilt on mothers because they have enough of that already.
Yeah.
But and some of it is cultural. Again, it's that what your expectations are in the culture. But it's the love is the best thing you can do, and showing it, and particularly physically, before a child learns the verbal skills to actually hug children. I sometimes wonder that the way of raising children was to have them swaddled in tight clothing and left in Russia, I wonder if that happened to Putin as a child, because
Maybe, yeah.
his behaviour looks very much strong avoidant attachment, along with
Small penis
personal
energy.
fear, homophobia as well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so, but in the end, it's if you can identify what your attachment style is, then you can start to work on it a little bit. And it's also very helpful if you can work out what the attachment style of your partner is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you've got an anxious attachment style, wanting reassurance all the time, and your partner's got an avoidant attachment style, trying to keep you at arm's length, the more you seek the reassurance, the more they're likely to withdraw.
Yeah.
And it can become, or if you've got two people who are avoidant, they kind of bounce off each other.
Yeah.
You know, I'm been a bit funny today. Ollie's been a bit funny with them. Screw them. No, screw you. No, screw you.
Yeah.
And before you know it, the relationship is exploding.
Wow.
And people end up with the thing that they don't want.
Yeah. And I think in any circumstance like that, the problem is it's trying to slow down your brain enough to be able to make that conscious recognition before you tell them, no, screw you.
Yeah.
Because obviously we've had these conversations over many years where I'm quite a confident, outgoing person and Stacey's quite shy and reserved. And it's really different that the amount of times that we'll be talking, you'll say, yeah, well, remember your attachment. And I'm like, but I don't remember anything. When I see the mist, I don't remember anything. And then she'll say something that makes that go even further away.
Yeah.
So it is difficult, but it is something worth talking about or discussing or looking into together because...
Oh, I was only... Can you just remind me the attachment styles again? Because this is so good today for me that it's like another language at the minute.
Yeah.
I've heard of attachment styles, but then I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
amazing.
I mean, obviously, in some ways, it's a huge oversimplification, but it's a really useful shorthand.
That's what we need on a podcast. Though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 20 or 40 minutes to talk about something. You're not going to do it to Nobel Prize level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we can dig a little deeper
Yeah.
when we go.
Yeah.
away
So
from
it's that the ideal, if you like, is a secure attachment style. I know who I am. I know that I'm lovable, and I'm confident that you love me.
I think I'm getting there. That honestly, that's my journey. That's where I'm becoming.
You'll be there with some people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the anxious attachment style, which is, I think I'm okay, but I need you to tell me. Will you please tell me I'm okay? Tell me I'm
More
okay.
so
Please.
there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not so sure that you love me.
Yeah,
You didn't tell me. I sent a text yesterday, and you didn't reply
Yeah,
for 5
I
minutes.
feel that I don't vocalise it to friends and family,
Yeah.
but that's how I'm really.
But that's the
feeling.
internal
Yeah,
dialogue.
that's where I'm at. Yeah.
And then the avoidant attachment style is, well,
They've
You-
not messaged back.
who cares? You know, I didn't need them anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, mate.
I'm better off without
Bloody
them.
hell. I've spent my life in them two camps,
Mm-hmm.
but again, I'm happier in my existence. I've got a family that I love, and I feel a bit more secure in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I am growing to that more secure attachment style, I feel. But
Mm-hmm.
wow, some that we spoke about, lack of love from a mother can lead you here.
Mm-hmm. Not lack of love.
Okay.
No, it's lack of experienced love.
Lack of
The,
experience.
the whole thing is, I mean, and this is more so for perhaps people in the past where Brits were even worse at exploring or expressing their love to the children. They didn't mean that they didn't love them. They just culturally they weren't very good at showing it.
Jason. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't normal.
And part of the maturing process for an individual is to recognise, hey, my mum and dad did love me, but they didn't get everything right because they're humans, and humans don't get everything right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, can it change if a dad doesn't show love or a dad's absence and a mother? Is it different to the attachment styles that you often pick up?
Well, again, it's not. We talk about mothers here, but it doesn't have to be the mother.
Yeah.
If there's someone around in childhood that's giving that unconditional love, for me, a major figure in my childhood, I think, was my grandfather.
Yeah. Same.
Because when I was a little kid, my dad was trying to set up a business. He was never at home.
Yeah.
I once ran in as a little kid and said, Mum, I've just seen my dad. When he
Yeah.
first set up in business, he had half a Christmas day off in 2 years. So he was working 3 jobs. My mum fell very ill when I was about 2 years old, and she was laid out. But I was looked after a lot by my granddad, who was very warm. So I think he played a large part on my personal security. But at the same time, I've got elements of avoidant attachment because I'm adopted, and at 6 weeks old, I was separated from my birth mother.
Yeah.
which was kind of emotional rupture. And I recognised in myself that tendency to go, well, screw you then.
Yeah.
When is the time that that's most manifested in your life? Was there a certain part of your timeline where you would really push people away?
It's when he's drunk.
Yeah.
It's when he's drunk talking to me on a Friday. But he all jokes apart, he aside, and this isn't throwing him under the bus, he recognises and he will preempt, he will lead with, I'm doing this, have a word with me, and then say, see, it would be stupid if I thought this, wouldn't it? And I'm like, what the fuck? But it's his
Guys are
coping,
real.
but it's his coping mechanism.
Yeah, I get that.
And we all have to, we all dip into each camp. There's little bits that we dip into each time, I feel, for me anyway. And I know with David, because he'll say, this is my attachment at the minute because you didn't answer my text. But this made me feel like this. I know it's stupid. I'm right for being stupid, aren't I? I'm like, yeah, you're right for being stupid. I was picking the kids up. But it's just one of those things. And we can all fall down rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Like I've got one of our really close friends. I'd messaged him and I was quite short, but he's the bluntest person in the world. The most direct person you could meet. So me and him are always so like matter of fact.
Yeah.
And I'd been matter of fact with him and not heard anything for a couple of days. And then Stacey sort of said, have you heard anything from him? And I was like, no. Oh, shit. And then I went into being a normal person as opposed to being this like abrupt, quite confident, solid bloke to think, shit. So then I started trying to get in touch with him and then he was not answering at all. And my phone calls were going straight to answer phone. And the narrative I was building in my brain, I was flicking between all of these so fast because I was spiraling because he means so much to me. But I was more worried now, like, how have I made him feel? Because he's he's a solid dude. He wouldn't normally react like this. And then when he got in touch with me, there was a really normal explanation for absolutely everything. And I was like, oh my God, thank fuck for that.
It's usually the case, isn't
yeah,
it, as well?
Yeah.
But I'd been on a horrendous roller coaster.
Yeah. And which is why, I encourage clients to have these feelings, could there be another explanation here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one client I had who very strong avoidant attachment issues. You could call them abandonment issues. That if his girlfriend did not reply within 10 minutes to a WhatsApp message, she must be screwing somebody else.
Yeah.
Not just
Yeah.
she doesn't want to talk to me. She's at
It's gone
work.
to the catastrophe.
Yeah.
And
This is-
in his relationships, the closer they got, the more likely they were to break.
Yeah.
Because it almost gets to the point where the tension becomes unbearable.
Yes.
So I want to make it clear that it's not saying that there's a right or wrong attachment style. You've got what you've got, and you can adjust it a little bit over time, but it is important to recognise what your own style is, because then you can make adjustments for it. Just as Owen has given an example, that I will recognise, right, I'm going a bit avoidant here, but I know what it is, but I'm going to feel better for talking about it.
Yeah. And it's what I find is when you're dealing with someone else, if it's your partner, your friend, your brother, whoever it is, and you know that they're a bit more anxious than you, I like to think I'm really open and I'm very straightforward, and what I say is what I'm going to do. But some people feel that nothing is what it seems, and it needs to have an ulterior motive. And for me, that if I didn't know that they had this different attachment, it can be exhausting because you find that you're forever justifying something or explaining something, and like you weren't asking in a passive aggressive way. You weren't trying to be like sarcastic. You weren't trying to be reverse psychology. You were just saying, "Do you want a cup of tea?" But because they haven't made a cup of tea for the past 5 times and they thought it's probably my turn and he's having a dick, it's really, really difficult if you aren't aware of their position. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think the main thing is trying to find out or trying to work out in your own brain, and again, slowing your brain down enough to then go, because obviously once the paper's lit and the fuse is off, you kind of avoid the rational or the normal rationale and just a logic approach. You get into this massive argument when realistically you go, do you want a cup of tea? What are you trying to say? Are you thirsty? Do you know what I mean? But it's knowing that you're not being the prick that they are projecting onto you because it's just their insecurities.
Yeah, once your conscious mind kind of hands over control to the primitive part of the brain, the amygdala and the limbic system, which is driving those flight or fight responses, then it's really hard to pull it back. So recognising when these triggers are coming in gives you a chance of avoiding them.
Yeah.
So a client recently, was talking about, with strong avoidant issues himself, and getting worried about his fiancée not treating him right. And we analysed it and think, well, she's got her own issues. And then this question came up, yeah, but why I've always got to be the one to make the compromise? Why have I always got to be the one to make the... I said, well, first...
That's a common thing.
Yeah, I said, first of all, you're the only one you've got any control over. So she might choose to do it, but you can't influence that. Yeah. And the situation that you're in with both of you avoiding, it's like trying to push the north pole of two magnets together.
Yeah.
They just repulse. You only have to turn one magnet around for them to attract.
So what did he have to do in that situation?
So it's just, I recognise that you're struggling here, honey.
Wow.
And it
Problem
seems
solved.
simple. It seems really simple.
Oh, mate.
But
Best episode ever, this one. It's really interesting. Yeah.
It's simplified as well, because you could say, you seem like you're struggling. It's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I'm struggling. You don't know me. And you're like, oh, shit, David was wrong. But it's taking the baby steps to find it, because there's kind of anchor points, isn't there, along the way that you can go,
Had you learned quite a bit about this then? Do you know of the attachment styles? Have you had a good chat together?
We've spoke about pretty much everything.
Beggars, aren't you?
For years. What was it, 15 years, more? And it's one of them where I've been coached through life by David on a number of elements without knowing that I'm being coached through life.
Because what I was going to ask is just, have you tried implementing in your life, in your day-to-day, and in your relationships, and has it worked?
I tried to. I try to implement everything.
Yeah.
But the main thing that I will say is it's the coping mechanism that reminds you. So it's like a little bell going off or something, because the problem is with these sessions, it makes everything so simple. You know what we should do? We should try this, or we should try that. Don't forget this, don't forget that. And in this calm environment, it's beautiful because it's really clear, really simple. But I find myself, even on the way home, someone will cut me up and I'm fucking fuming. Or like the kids will get in, or the dogs have done something. And we've got to give ourselves a little bit of slack, because I've got work, I've got this, I've got to sort the dogs later, I've got to sort the kids, one of them is stopping out, one of them stopping out tomorrow night, I've got to sort the cars out, I've got something on a warranty to do with my car, the suitcases still need to go away, loads of shit. And it's reminding yourself, when you can feel that the fuse is burning, it's trying to slow everything down. So it's like falling out with the kids. Someone was talking to me the other day, because they were listening to this, and they said they love the podcast, they love it, and they get it, and they understand that you're almost boxing a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, whoever they are. You just want to shake them, and obviously that's wrong. So you get to the point where, what do you do? Because everyone gets drawn into that stupid fight. And one of the things that I said, I can't remember if I said this on the last podcast, was if you can smile when you're talking to them, it's like when we're in the call centres. When you smile, it just makes everything different.
Endorphins.
Yeah, and it just kind of changes stuff, because you can't be too mad when you're smiling, and then or it can almost confuse them as well. With my eldest, she's 14, she's ready to fight all the time. So if I smile when I'm talking, she's like, what? Oh, what you laughing at? I'm not laughing, Dad. I'm just...
But what you're doing there is you're reading a different script.
Yeah.
What often happens with these sort of attachment competitions is the other person's handing you a script to read, and you just read the part they give you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reject me. Okay, I'm going to reject you. And then you just don't reject them, and it's confusing then. Hang on, you're not playing the part right
Break
here.
the matrix, don't
And,
you?
I mean, that's precisely it.
I had someone once, at work who'd got really fallen out with me, and I just went and sat by the desk and grinned at them till they cracked.
Yeah.
Owen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have that in even social settings. I remember working in retail, and we have this social dance, don't we? How are you? Good. Weather. But then when I was like, I can't do that anymore, and you just break that matrix with people, the conversations were beautiful outside of that.
Oh, yeah, if you ask an actual question.
Yeah,
because
the amount genuinely interested.
Yeah. How many times you said to someone, when they say, you're right, you go, not bad. Why not bad?
Yeah.
Why is it not bad? It's like, no, I'm good.
Let's delve into that.
Or if you're not good.
Or not too bad.
Yeah. Or if you say to someone, all right, how are you? Bad. And they go, all right. And they carry on walking. You think, why ask? There's no need to ask. If you don't give a shit, don't ask. And yeah,
It's just changing that script. I love that.
it's important. But the thing is, it's not easy.
No.
It's not something that you
Simple,
can
but
just
not
go,
easy.
don't do that. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to fall out with my 14-year-old
Yeah.
ever again, because ultimately I know I will.
Yeah, knowledge of something doesn't cure you of something.
No.
So the biggest single indicator of who is most likely to buy a self-help book is someone who's bought a self-help book.
Yeah.
So it shows that they don't work.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yeah.
it's the practice that works.
Yeah.
So you might get an understanding of, and hopefully go and read more about attachment styles, but that isn't going to solve anything
Yeah.
for you. It's reflecting on how you are yourself and how other people interact with you, and try to make incremental changes, which over time will help you to improve. But I recognise that my issues with abandonment stem from when I was 6 weeks old. They're never going to go entirely away, but I can, and I have, considerably reduced the impact of them. And I've not lost any relationships in years as a result
Yeah.
of them.
Again, so there's the awareness there, and then are there some practical things, like, again, with that person that catastrophized and went out of control there? Okay, we rationale that thinking. Is there something else? And then what?
Well, it's just, first of all, what's really happening for me here,
Yeah.
and what's happening for the other person. Because very often we're thinking, how are they treating me, rather than, and it's so much more powerful to think, what's it like for them? So I tell all my clients that I'm not going to judge them, and I'm going to accept them unconditionally, which makes me sound like a saint. You two both know that I'm not
Yeah.
a saint, some great distance from that. But it's when people tell you who they are and you're listening to them, it's kind of impossible to judge people,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there are always reasons for why people are as they are.
This is it.
And it's very easy to accept people if you know where they're coming from.
Yeah.
So there's two things. Understand yourself. Self-knowledge is the key to so many things, but try and strive to understand the other person. So if your partner's giving you a hard time,
What's going
you could
on?
be thinking, they shouldn't treat me like that. That's not right. I'm going to give them a hard time back. Or you could be
Yeah.
thinking, wow, what's happened for them today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guess what that's going to achieve when you start pushing back and back. Yeah.
And that's
Like
yeah.
that.
But the thing is, when you flip it and you actually go off the cliff and you end up ignoring each other, you know that thing where you can literally, you've known this person your entire life and you walk into a house and completely ignoring each other, and that horrible feeling of like just not wanting to give in, which is obviously that's the end we don't want to end up at. But I'll always try and make a mental note of how shit that feels. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's just that really lonely, horrible. When you've made a stance to like take yourself off to the bedroom, or they've taken themselves off, and you've fallen out, and you've just, when you break it down to like what you've actually fallen out about, and you think, for fuck's sake. But it's making a mental note of how shit these last hour, 2-3 hours have felt before you've made up again. Because then when it is good, it's like, oh, I always want it to be like this. So it's working out how to avoid that. Does that make sense?
And also recognising that it's not always necessary to talk things through.
Yeah.
There's this view, this therapized view of the world that, couples need to talk everything through. If you've both screwed up, maybe it's just best to let it go.
Yeah.
And,
Advice.
very often it's just the attachment styles have clashed with one another. You've both pushed each other away. Calm down, normalise as soon as possible and move on. If there's a consistent behaviour that's based on choice, that's destructive, then that's something to talk about. But getting it wrong sometimes, apart from, sorry,
Yeah.
because very often, let's talk it through, is I want you to do penance for your error.
Yeah.
I want you to show
Understand what you
no,
did.
no, I understand. Well, understand, but understand the consequences of what
Yeah,
you've done and
yeah.
how much that's hurt me, and say it. And sorry's not enough.
But making them sort of psychoanalyze themselves constantly. And
But it's
sort of
really it's punishing. It's
Yeah,
wanting
yeah,
to
of course.
punish.
Well, yeah,
Of
it's
course.
just grinding them down because
Yeah.
it's for
You're
someone.
not right. You're not.
Yeah.
The thing is, you're either one of those type of people that you can apologise, and it's a normal thing for you to apologise. And I know more people that they find it so difficult to apologise. Like it's the biggest thing in the world to say I'm sorry. Whereas for me, it's like it's been diluted now. So if I say to my wife, sorry, she's like, yeah, well, you're always saying sorry. And then because of this, and this, and you made me, and I'm like, whoa, hold on. I said sorry. It's like, it's not the point. You need to know how I felt. And then if you flip it the other way and I say, you haven't said sorry, she's like, oh, and that can fire it off again. And it's such a weird thing, this one little word that can just...
But again, it's recognising that when sorry's not enough, they've got emotions that have not been processed.
Yeah.
So again, don't read the script of restarting the battle.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
And just go limp.
Yeah. Just play
That's
possum.
easy doing.
Yeah. But it's true because it is like they're just digging for more blood. Do you know what I mean? And I think
Because again, it's those primitive parts of the brain which are in fight mode need to take time to calm down. It takes time for the adrenaline to wash out the system.
yeah, that's true.
You know, we're animals and we're being driven by animal instincts here. That the idea of a threat to important relationships is one of the deepest level threats that we can experience.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising it produces extraordinary responses in us. But it's recognising, is the threat real? So very often it's, okay, what's the evidence show? What's really happening? So they've not replied to my message. Yeah, is there another explanation beyond they hate me?
Yeah, there's probably 100.
You know,
100
there are
reasons.
millions
Yeah.
of other explanations, aren't there? Or they're off screwing somebody else. Maybe the battery's gone down. Maybe they're in a meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe they thought, I've got to reply to that, and then got distracted and
Yeah.
forgot. There are an infinite number of reasons why. But you choose, and we talked about this in talking about love. Choose to accept. Choose to forgive.
Yeah.
And that's an example of secure attachment. So even if you're not feeling the secure attachment, try and act like you've got it.
It's also good to just remind yourself people have attachments,
Mm-hmm.
and because for me, I get really busy, and sometimes I don't message people back, and they will hold that animosity or they'll message you about it,
Mm-hmm.
and then I feel guilt and shame and badness on myself of I should have should have,
Mm.
but I was genuinely just doing something, and I was genuinely busy. So it's good to just remind myself, people are struggling.
Yeah.
People go through that. Don't hold it onto yourself and let that live.
Yeah. So again, it's been being able to recognise part of this is being able to recognise what's your stuff compared to what's someone else's stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life becomes a lot lighter, doesn't it, when you put yourself in other people's shoes and get out your own ego for a
Yeah.
bit.
If you walk a mile in someone else's shoes before you judge them,
Yeah.
then you're a mile away from them and you've got a new pair of shoes.
There you go.
Mate,
See?
can we end on that?
If you didn't-
That was wicked.
If you didn't see that coming, it was magical. For me. That was magical.
All I needed that.
There you go.
I'm solved.
Okay, well, we will end it there. It's not the answer to everything, but again, it's another little useful tool. So think about your attachment style and think about the attachment style of the people that you care about. Might make things go a bit smoother. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Just like that finish.
That finish was a
Jerky,
bit smoother.
jerky as fuck. Yeah.